Thanks for downloading the McKay interview. This podcast is brought to you by Kyoto Japan Automotive Group, a company which I've known personally for over 20 years, and your one-stop shop for tires, batteries, and auto parts. Visit their website at www.kyotojap.com for more details. My newest guest is Jean-Pierre Roth, a former president of the Swiss National Bank, but now, among other important roles, president of the Foundation for the Renovation of the Swiss Guard Barracks in the Vatican. We talk about many things, including why the Swiss Guard are there in the Vatican guarding the Pope. Since when have they been doing it? Why the barracks have fallen into disrepair? And how much money the Foundation is seeking to raise? I hope you enjoy the podcast. Hello everyone. I've mentioned before my slight annoyance at the overuse of certain words in everyday language to the point where their meaning is devalued. It's just my opinion, and you may or may not agree with me. But then again, I suppose that vocabulary is as much influenced by fashion as are items of clothing and social mores. Now, one of the words overused and so in danger of losing the power of its original meaning is iconic. However, let me choose one institution, one Swiss institution, which is both unique and iconic, that truly deserves that description. And this is not just my opinion, because I think that when I tell you what it is, the majority of you listening will agree with me. My topic today is the Swiss Guard, the Pontifical Swiss Guard, or the Papal Guard of the Vatican. You surely know them by their conspicuous uniforms in the striking colours of blue, red, orange, and yellow, with a distinctly Renaissance appearance, always close to the pontiff and on duty 24/7 in Vatican City. They are intrinsically Swiss, intrinsically Roman Catholic, and at least for the time being, intrinsically male and mostly unmarried. Switzerland has been linked closely to the Vatican through the Pontifical Guard since 1506. 1506. And that predates the 1848 modern confederation of Switzerland by many centuries. And even for a country like Switzerland, which values long, loyal, fidel, Troy relationships very highly, 517 years is a long time. Now, today's interview and my special guest will lead us through a fascinating story which will explain a particular project with which he's closely involved. And in doing so, disclose more of the history of this unique military and security institution about which many of us, me included, are familiar, but only superficially. My guest, a distinguished Swiss, is someone whose name Swiss listeners to this program will recognize immediately. And non-Swiss who are or have been in finance and banking will also know. He's Jean-Pierre Roth, among many high-level posts that he's held during his long and distinguished career. He was the president of the Swiss National Bank from 2001 to 2009, and you don't need a long memory to recall that those were very turbulent times globally and in Switzerland, but he's not here today to talk about finance and banking. He's still very active professionally, being a board member of many conspicuously important companies like Nestlé, Swiss Re, and the Swatch Group, to name just three of many. He's also vice chairman of the Arab Bank in Geneva, which is where we are recording this interview today. And now I come to the point of today. Additional to his other responsibilities, he's also the president of the Foundation for the Renovation of the Swiss Guard Barracks in the Vatican. And through him, I hope to learn more about the Swiss Guard, how Swiss people regard it, how Romans, even Italians, see it, and why the barracks have fallen into disrepair such that a special organization is required to raise money for it. Jean-Pierre, welcome to the McKay interview. Thanks for making time for me and for all our listeners.
Thank you, Michael, for having me with you today. I'm so happy to talk about this unique institution, which is the Swiss Pontifical Guard.
It is truly unique. Now, I've got lots and lots of questions for you, but let me start with the obvious. We all know the Swiss Guard, whether we've been to Rome and the Vatican or not. But tell me something about their history. Why are they there? Who are they? What did they actually do? And let's start with why. What is the history of the Swiss Guard? And I mentioned at the beginning this big number of 517 years. What happened at that time?
Well, at that time, Switzerland was an extremely poor country. Well, a poor country, poor farmers producing milk and cheese. There was no banks, no industry, no watch industry. So the Swiss people had difficult to find enough jobs for the population. And something incredible for today, Swiss worked foreign workers. They left the country.
They went abroad.
They left the country to find jobs. And they were not educated, had no professional skills. The only things they could do was to be soldier in an army.
In somebody else's army.
Exactly, and you could find Swiss soldiers in France, to the King of France. They were massacred in the French Revolution.
Yes.
Les 100 Suisses.
The Tuileries.
On the Tuileries Castle. And you find them in Spain, in Vienna, in Germany, in the different kingdom they had there, and of course also by the Pope. But the Pope by the time was head of the Pontifical States.
Yeah.
And he had also troops to defend himself, and Julius II asked the Swiss Confederation to recruit soldiers in an early 16th century, and the foundation of the Pontifical Guard dates back to 1507.
And they had a good reputation there as fighters.
They were
at that time.
Aggressive guys.
Yeah. Is it true what I've heard that a lot of them were farmers and they basically preferred to fight in the winter but to go back to the land in Switzerland in the spring and summer?
Well,
is that not really true?
Probably there were some kind of job sharing between you. Please conduct your fights in winter so they can come back home and work in the farm during summer.
Look, Jean-Pierre, it's good that you start the conversation that way. Now, Italy has had a varied history in those years, to put it mildly, and didn't even, as you know, become a unitary state, a sovereign state, till 1870. And of course, the Vatican predates, as you said, Italy by many centuries. But please tell me a little bit more about these young Swiss men who guard the Pope. First of all, how many of them are there, and how are they chosen, and where do they come from in Switzerland? I mean, what's the criteria of selection? And have those criteria changed much over the last 500 years?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what the criteria. The criteria was probably main criteria in the past was to be aggressive and strong. But nowadays there are 135 guards. 100.
That's all.
135.
So it's quite small.
Small, but this is the largest. The largest nationality in maybe Italian. There are more Italian than Swiss in the Vatican, but the Swiss is a very large group of foreigners in Vatican.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
There are 135, and they live in the Vatican. Most people working in the Vatican are living in the city of Rome.
Yeah.
Because in the Vatican City, well, lodging is extremely difficult. So at night, the majority of people sleeping in Vatican are Swiss.
That's amazing.
That's
an
an
amazing
picture,
story.
right?
There can't be any other place in the world like that outside of Switzerland.
So they can. Well, who are they? They are young, between 19 and 30, when they start. And they are Catholic. They can come from every place in Switzerland. The history is interesting because it was not possible for people from Ticino to join the Guard until the early 20th century.
And the reason for that?
Because the reason for was probably the Pope didn't want any unpleasant connection between his guards and the Italian around.
But just
that was very strange. But I came to that detail and was surprised. Nowadays there are, of course, also guard coming from Ticino. So 135, they have finished education in Switzerland, high school degree or professional certificate. And
so that's mandatory. They must have
reputation.
That.
Good reputation.
And they don't necessarily have to come from a Catholic canton.
No, not necessarily. At all. No. We have soldiers coming from Geneva.
Yeah, from Geneva.
From Geneva as well.
Calvin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, the cantons providing most of the guard is Valais, Fribourg, Lucerne.
Yeah. Yeah, the heart
That's
of the Confederation.
That's, of course, the very hard or coming from there. And in Valais, what is interesting, because I'm from Valais, I thought probably the German-speaking part of Canton Valais is providing more than the French-speaking part. Exactly the opposite.
No, really?
Exactly. Most guard coming from Valais are coming from the French-speaking part of the canton.
And does it continue in families? Is there a tradition between father, son, uncle, nephew?
There are families with traditions. There are people saying, well, my father was, or my uncle was, and they talk in the family, and always they come back fascinated by their job they have done, because on average they stay about 3 years.
Okay.
So the guard has to be renewed
every 3 years.
One third every year.
Yeah.
Every year we have about 20, 30 new guardmen.
Yeah. That's fascinating. For the benefit of me, myself, and people listening who don't know their history very much, roughly, I mean, how big were the papal states in those days? I mean, how far outside of Rome did the papal states extend? Because the Pope was actually a leader of an army too, wasn't he? One time?
Well, the Pope had its own state.
Yes.
The Pontifical state, and they disappeared 1871.
At the time of unification.
Unification of Italy. And what is interesting is that a Pope had always have ambassadors. Each country has an ambassador to Vatican.
Sure.
I have to correct. He's not ambassador to Vatican, he's ambassador to the Holy See.
To the Holy See, yeah.
And the difference is that the Holy See is not a territory. The Holy See is the Catholic Church.
Yeah, exactly.
So when the Vatican State disappeared, 1871, the Holy See survived, and the diplomatic contact were maintained.
That's fascinating. But here's a question for you, which I'm sure won't surprise you, even if it sounds a little bit silly. What do they actually do? I mean, are they really required to guard the Pope and the borders of the Vatican State as well? Do they do that?
Everyone in Vatican sees the Swiss Guard beautifully dressed in this. You mentioned that Renaissance type uniform. So they have responsibility to guard the Pontifical Palace.
Yes.
The Pontifical Palace is the place where the Pope is supposed to live.
And so when you look at the church...
Not the border.
Not the border.
The Pontifical Palace, if you look at the church, and you have the building on the right where the Pope on Sunday came for his address.
When he looks through the window.
Through the window, that's a window of the Pontifical Palace.
Okay, I know where it is. Yeah.
And the guard is in charge of checking the entrance of the Vatican, and there are only 3 entrances with cars.
So they could ask you for your security pass or your passport?
Yeah, if you're allowed to come in or not. So they check the entrance.
Their job.
They have also a Renaissance type uniform, but a different one, beautiful sky blue, and they check the identity of people at Porta Sant'Anna and elsewhere in Vatican. That's one pay.
How do the Italian police fit in with that?
But there is no Italian police on Vatican ground.
On Vatican territory.
But there is a gendarmeria.
Yeah.
Gendarmerie is the police troop in the Vatican, which does not depend which is in charge of traffic, things like that within Vatican.
Okay.
And well, we see these people also standing during hours, like in front of Buckingham Palace. You see the Buckingham Palace, the Horse Guard security, standing during hours. But all that is only the visible part of their job.
Course. Yeah.
The invisible part of the job is their job as bodyguard. They are trained as bodyguard. And that because
so
the
really
function,
up close.
their function, their main mandate is to be the bodyguards of the Pope.
I see.
So when the Pope travels in the world, and you will see the so-called Papa Mobile, the car of the Pope, the white car of the Pope, you see the Pope waving from the car, and you see people walking right and left in normal grey suit. These are the guards.
The Swiss Guard, really?
Swiss Guards.
I know.
Because they are the first line of line of defense.
I see.
And that's the mandate. And when they are swearing in, they're sworn in on the 6th of May. They swear to be ready to give their life for the Pope.
So that was just the other day.
Exactly, on last Saturday.
Yeah.
And it's interesting in Switzerland. That's the only young people who are asked to give their life for something.
Really?
Because in the army, when I joined the army,
you don't have to take an oath.
There is nothing special. You are just part of the army. Full stop. That's all.
Fascinating. But my guest today is the distinguished Swiss business leader, Jean-Pierre Roth. He's talking to me in his capacity as president of the Foundation for the Renovation of the Swiss Guard Barracks in the Vatican, and we're talking, unsurprisingly, about the iconic Swiss Guard. Now, Jean-Pierre, the Guard is intrinsically Roman Catholic, but Switzerland is not. In terms of religious confession, it's balanced fairly evenly across the Confederation between Protestant and Catholic, though I think, when I checked it, there are a few more Catholics these days than Protestants, more or less. But in fact, Protestantism's Rome is just 10 minutes walk up the hill from where we're sitting now, the Cathedral of St. Pierre. Jean Calvin declared Geneva for Protestantism in 1533. So how do non-Catholic Swiss, here's my question, or irreligious Swiss, people who don't believe, how do they see the Swiss Guard? With pride or with indifference or with curiosity? Or what's been your experience of that?
They are all fascinated.
All fascinated.
Because first, the Swiss Guard is not a religious order.
True.
They are professionals.
Yeah.
It's a security corps, professional people, professional security. But all Swiss, well, I would say, should not go to the extreme. Most Swiss consider that the Swiss Guard plays an important role for the reputation of the country.
Yeah.
They are all proud of the fact that Switzerland is in charge of the security of one so important person, like the Pope. It's not because they are Catholic or they are Protestant, but they're really fascinated, and they see that this is part of our identity. Often I say the Swiss Guard give much more visibility for Switzerland than one of the national pavilions during world exhibition.
That's true.
And the government invests in 10-15 million for a pavilion in Dubai or for and there are of course maybe thousands, million of people coming and seeing the pavilion, but the Swiss Guard is over there, and there are also millions of pilgrims, of visitors
coming to the Vatican all the
and
time.
they all see these are Swiss. We all know that the Swiss are there.
Yeah.
Why? Because they inspire confidence. They have courage. There are punctuality. So all positive values you can associate with the name of Switzerland, which is of course fantastic for the brand.
Absolutely.
It's a fantastic publicity for the country. So it's for free.
It's amazing.
Because no public money is going to Rome for the budget of the Swiss Guard. The Swiss Guard is fully paid.
No Swiss taxpayers' money.
Is it no Swiss taxpayers' money? We are talking about the project of renovation in a minute.
Yes, that's a different thing.
But for the regular budget of the Swiss Guard, there is no Swiss money.
I see.
There is some cooperation between the Guard and the Swiss Army in some training.
Yes.
Okay, they go to Ticino, to one of the barracks of the Swiss Army in Ticino to do exercise, things like that. But also cooperation between Switzerland and Sweden, Switzerland in defense. So this is. So all Swiss, I think all Swiss are proud, and probably the Swiss Guard, after Roger Federer, are the most photographed people, Swiss people.
I think you're right, and they're conspicuous.
Everyone wants to have a picture with a Swiss Guard.
Absolutely. Now, I told you very briefly when we met the first time the story of my daughter when we were living in Zug, and she was speaking Schweizerdeutsch because we were living in the German part of Switzerland. Went to the Vatican on vacation, and I lost her in the busy crowd, and I discovered she was talking to this very tall Swiss Guard in Swiss German just to test if I was telling her the truth, that they really do speak Swiss German. Anyway, no, I wanted to ask you one other question, which is regarding recruitment applications. I mean, is it a problem finding young men who want to do this, or is it oversubscribed?
That was my surprise. There is no problem.
No problem at all.
We had faced in the past with problem, but nowadays no problem. Well, what is the profile of these young people? They have finished high school, or they are at the end of the professional education. They have a certificate. This is a requirement. And maybe they don't know what they will do in the future. They don't know what kind of study they will do. So they decide to make some kind of pause and to come to Rome. So they learn a foreign language because they have to be to be good in
Italian.
No, the official language of the Guard is German.
I see.
Everything,
Yeah.
that's the official language for commanding the Guards. But they speak German, speak French, and they learn Italian.
I see.
So that when they come back after 3 years, they're good in all these three languages, and this is of course not bad in the CV.
Very useful.
In the CV also being in the Swiss Guard is so good, positive for the character. So.
And one last question on that before we go on to the barracks themselves. The reason that they have to be single, is that because of the facilities for married men and families, or are there circumstances where married men can be in the Swiss Guard? I didn't quite understand.
Well, this is historical. Historically, it was only unmarried soldiers, and only the officers had the family.
Only the officers?
That was in the past.
Yeah.
Then things have changed over time, and the last change was 2016, when the Pope Francis asked the Guard to flexibilize the rules in order to have possibility of more families. And this was probably the origin of the project of the new barracks, because having more family means you need more space.
Yeah, of course.
And it's impossible today to have all the families. There are 20, I think more than 20 families nowadays. Many kids, and it's fantastic to see the kids playing within the barracks for the families able to have an apartment there. But most families have to live in the city of Rome, which is not good, because a troop has to stay at the same place to create the identity and the culture. It's not that good that the family are not all together. And that was a problem for the Colonel Graf, the commander of the Guard, and he asked me, we have to do something, and the conclusion was, we have to rebuild.
So let's come now to the barracks. I mean, why have they fallen into such a state? And maybe you could just describe for me briefly what condition you found.
So, well, the point is the following: there are 3 buildings nowadays for the barracks, and the oldest buildings is mid 19th century, and the most recent building is 1920. Maybe the Vatican is good for religious issues, but they are not good in maintaining building. Maybe they maintain St. Peter, that's very well done, but they do not care very much about normal buildings. Mm. So the buildings are in very good shape. Of course, it's a very old. They are very, very old buildings, poor materials. Not totally in line with all standard of energy saving. It's overheated in summer and extremely cold in winter. But the main point was we have at the same place in the same footprint of the present barracks to rebuild a new building, in order to have more stores, because stories. We need more space, and the traditional building in Rome has very high ceilings, so it's not very efficient for lodging the guards.
So, how much money are you seeking to raise, and how is the fundraising progressing?
So the fundraising started 2019, and I was very well supported by Mrs. Former Federal Chancellor Doris Leuthard. We both conducted the fundraising, and we have now almost reached our objective of 50 million Swiss francs. 50.
Yeah.
50 million Swiss francs of donation or pledge of donation, and they are everything coming from 5 million from Vatican and 45 from Switzerland.
And so these will be companies, businesses, foundations, even in the congregation in churches on a Sunday morning, that kind of thing?
Well, we have money coming from all over the place. First, we have public money. The Confederation decided to give 5 million on the occasion of the 100th anniversary of the diplomatic relationship between Switzerland and Vatican.
So there is some public money there.
And some public money. And when I realized that the Confederation was going to celebrate this 100th anniversary, I saw that is for us the unique opportunity to have the Swiss Confederation on board. Having the Swiss Confederation on board also triggered the cantons to support us. So altogether, Confederation and canton, we have 9 million coming from there. The rest is coming from foundation, from private person, from Catholic institution. And we still miss 1.5 million. So if one listener is having 1.5 million available, please go to internet, find the homepage of the Barracks or the Swiss Guard, and you can make your 1.5 million donation there.
There you are, listeners to the McKay interview. You couldn't wish for a better invitation. I was going to ask him how people could put their hands in their pocket and make a contribution. Last question, Jean-Pierre. History has a long arm. British and non-British listeners alike will have had this brought home in the most pleasant ways just a few days ago when observing the recent coronation of King Charles III. Parts of the ceremony in Westminster Abbey dated back more than 1,000 years. But how about Switzerland and its unique position of neutrality? How much of Switzerland's special neutral status is tied up in its long relationship with the Pope and the Vatican? And is Swiss neutrality important today? And was it ever a significant factor in the past? Swiss neutrality, how do you see that?
Swiss neutrality comes from the situation that we realized we had Swiss soldier fighting in different armies. And it was, of course, for Switzerland, the delicate situation of having in a war between France and Germany, or France and the King of Spain, having Swiss on both sides. And Swiss neutrality comes back to Marignano, 1515.
So remind the listeners what happened in Marignano, please.
Marignano was the King Francis I of France against the Kingdom of North Italy, and the Swiss were on the Italian side, and the French. Many Swiss were massacred, and the decision was to abandon foreign policy ambitions of Switzerland stopped in 1515 in Marignano.
1515, it was a long time ago. But it's a significant
date.
It
was a decision not to have a very active fight and to move towards neutrality, which has been confirmed by Treaty of Vienna, and now everything is in the treaties. But there is no special link, but the fact that the Pope has a Swiss Guard is a concrete proof of neutrality.
Absolutely.
That's
absolutely.
all.
Yeah. Jean-Pierre, it's been absolutely fascinating listening to your explanations. Thanks for your time, and thanks for all your interesting, very interesting answers. And I wish you well with your grand Swiss Guard project. My guest today has been Jean-Pierre Roth. Thank you again, Jean-Pierre.
Thank you, and I wait for the 1.5 million donation.
I'm sure there's someone out there listening. Thanks for listening to the Mackay Interview podcast, brought to you by Kyoto Japan Automotive Group, a company which I've known personally for over 20 years, and your one-stop shop for tyres, batteries and auto parts. Visit their website at www.kyotojap.com for more details. And you can find more podcasts on Anchor FM. Just Google Mackay Interview Anchor FM. Thanks again for listening.